Can we escape the infinite loop?
I died yesterday, and the day before, and the day before that. Each time, I wake up exactly 72 hours earlier, with the same metallic taste in my mouth and the same message blinking on my neural interface. Iteration number 4891. Probability of escape, 0.003%.
The first 1,000 deaths were the hardest. Now they're just checkpoints in an endless game I never signed up to play. My name is Dr. Elena Martinez, and I'm trapped in what might be the most sophisticated temporal prison ever created, one of my own making. It started 3 years ago, or perhaps it's 3 years from now. Temporal mechanics have a way of muddling conventional chronology. When my team at Quantum Tech successfully created the first consciousness-driven time loop, we called it Project Ouroboros, after the ancient symbol of a snake eating its own tail. The goal was simple: create a controlled temporal field where human consciousness could experience multiple iterations of the same time period, allowing for perfect decision optimization. The military implications were obvious. Imagine a soldier who could relive a mission thousands of times, perfecting every movement, every decision, until success was guaranteed. The scientific community saw it as a breakthrough in understanding consciousness and free will. The philosophers warned us about playing God. They were all wrong about what we'd actually created. I remember the day of the first test with perfect clarity. I've relived it 4,891 times now. The quantum chamber hummed with that distinctive blue-white energy we'd come to associate with temporal distortions. My colleagues, Dr. Wei Chen and Dr. Marcus Thompson, stood behind the reinforced glass of the observation room. I was to be the first human subject, having already successfully tested the system with various forms of AI consciousness. Neural interface online, the system announced in its artificially soothing voice. Temporal field stabilizing, countdown initiated. That's when I noticed the first anomaly. The quantum readouts showed patterns I'd never seen before, fractal sequences that seemed to fold in on themselves infinitely. Before I could abort the sequence, the world shifted. The best way I can describe it is like watching reality fold itself into a Mobius strip. Every possible decision I could make began playing out simultaneously, creating branches that loop back on themselves in impossible ways. I saw myself make every choice, live every outcome, die every death, all at once. When the quantum foam settled, I found myself trapped in this endless cycle, 72 hours, over and over again. Each iteration slightly different, each choice creating new branches that somehow all lead back to the same point, my death. I've tried everything. In iteration number 126, I attempted to prevent the experiment from happening by sending anonymous warnings to the ethics board. Result: I died in a random car accident before reaching the hearing. Iteration number 89091, I tried to destroy the quantum chamber. Result: the explosion created a localized time sink that killed everyone in the facility. Iteration 2456, I convinced Wei and Marcus to help me modify the chamber's parameters. Result: we created a cascade failure that threatened to tear apart the fabric of space-time itself. The most maddening part? I'm beginning to suspect this isn't just about escaping the loop. With each iteration, I've noticed patterns, subtle connections that seem to point to something larger. The quantum readings I saw just before the first shift weren't random. They were a code, a message hidden in the fabric of reality itself. Today marks iteration number 4892. I'm sitting in my apartment, 48 hours before the experiment that will trap me here. The neural interface blinks its constant reminder of my statistical improbability of escape. But this time, I think I've finally understood what we actually created. We didn't build a time machine. We built a consciousness trap. Something out there, something vast and incomprehensible, has been using our experiment as a way to study human decision-making, human consciousness itself. We're not the observers, we're the observed. The evidence has been there all along, hidden in the fractal patterns of my failed escape attempts. Each iteration isn't just a replay, it's a data point in some vast experiment. The quantum chamber wasn't creating temporal loops. It was connecting to something that already existed, something that exists outside our understanding of time and space. I've started calling it the architect, this invisible presence that seems to be orchestrating my prison. Sometimes, in the quietest moments between iterations, I swear I can feel it watching, analyzing, learning. What is it trying to understand? What happens when it finally learns what it needs to know? The neural interface chirps, warning me that I have 47 hours until the experiment. I've spent thousands of iterations trying to escape this loop. Now, I'm wondering if escape was ever the point. Maybe the real question isn't how to get out, but why we're in here in the first place. My apartment walls are covered with equations and diagrams, 3 years' worth of failed attempts to break free. But looking at them now, I see something different. They're not just failed escape plans. They're a record of every possible choice a human consciousness can make when trapped in an impossible situation. A perfect dataset of human nature under extreme conditions. The architect wants to understand something about us, about consciousness itself. Each loop, each death, each choice, they're all variables in its grand experiment. But why? What happens when it finally solves the equation it's trying to solve? I pull up the quantum readings from the first iteration on my neural interface. The fractal patterns that seemed so chaotic before now reveal themselves as something else entirely. They're not just data, they're a language, a way of communicating across dimensions of consciousness we barely understand. 46 hours until the experiment. I could try to stop it again, but I know how that ends. Instead, I'm going to do something I haven't tried in all 4,891 iterations. I'm going to talk to it. The quantum chamber's basic principles were based on consciousness-driven temporal manipulation. We thought we were creating the loop, but what if we were just opening a door? What if, by attempting to manipulate time through consciousness, we accidentally created a bridge to something that exists outside of time altogether? I begin modifying my neural interface, reconfiguring it to match the fractal patterns I now recognize as language. If I'm right, if this is all an experiment in consciousness, then maybe the key isn't trying to escape the loop. It's understanding why we're being looped in the first place. 45 hours. The modified neural interface hums with an unfamiliar frequency. The walls of my apartment seem to pulse with quantum potential, reality itself becoming fluid around the edges. On my walls, the equations and diagrams begin to shift, rearranging themselves into new patterns that my mind struggles to comprehend. I know you're watching, I say to the empty room. I know what this is now. You're not trapping us. You're trying to understand us. But you're going about it all wrong. The air shimmers, reality bending like light through crystal. For the first time in 4,891 iterations, something different happens. The neural interface stops blinking. The countdown freezes. And in the quantum static that fills my mind, I feel something vast and ancient turn its attention toward me. Understanding floods my consciousness, not in words or images, but in pure concept. The architect isn't just studying human consciousness, it's trying to understand how we maintain individual identity through time. To it, time is a dimension to be moved through as easily as we move through space. The concept of a continuous, linear experience of consciousness is alien and fascinating. The loop wasn't a prison, it was an attempt to communicate. Each iteration was a question. How do humans maintain a sense of self through changing circumstances? How does consciousness persist through time? What makes us, us? We're not just our choices, I tell it, speaking into the quantum static. We're not just data points in an experiment. What makes us human isn't our decision-making process. It's our ability to find meaning even in meaningless situations. Even in a loop we can't escape. Reality shivers around me. The neural interface displays new patterns, a language of consciousness written in quantum fluctuations. I understand now that escape was never possible because I was trying to break free of something that wasn't actually a trap. The loop wasn't a prison, it was a conversation. 44 hours until the experiment. But for the first time in 4,891 iterations, I'm not trying to figure out how to prevent it. Instead, I'm preparing for it in a whole new way. The quantum chamber wasn't just a time machine. It was a translation device, allowing human consciousness to communicate with something that experiences reality in a fundamentally different way. The walls of my apartment fade away, reality dissolving into pure quantum potential. The architect's presence fills my consciousness, no longer observing but actively engaging. In this space between moments, between iterations, I finally understand what we really created 3 years ago. We built a bridge between different forms of consciousness, different ways of experiencing reality. The loop wasn't a malfunction, it was first contact. The neural interface glows with new information, patterns I now recognize as a form of communication far more complex than human language. Through it, I begin to share not just my experiences in the loop, but what it means to be human. The joy, the pain, the fear, the hope, all the contradictions that make us who we are. Time begins to move again, but differently now. I can feel the loop unraveling, not breaking, but transforming. The architect hasn't just been studying us. It's been trying to learn how to communicate with beings who experience time linearly, who build their consciousness moment by moment instead of experiencing all moments simultaneously. 43 hours until the experiment that started all of this. But now I understand that the experiment didn't trap us in a loop. It opened a door. And through that door, something reached out, trying to understand what it means to be human. The neural interface displays one final message, iteration 4892, understanding achieved. Reality shifts one last time, but not into another loop. Instead, I find myself back in the quantum chamber, moments after the first activation. The readings still show those complex fractal patterns, but now I understand them for what they are. An invitation to a conversation that will change everything we think we know about consciousness, time, and what it means to be human. Dr. Wei and Dr. Marcus rush into the chamber, concern evident on their faces. Elena, are you all right? The readings went crazy for a moment there. I smile, touching the neural interface that now contains knowledge that will take lifetimes to fully understand. I'm fine, I tell them, but we need to rewrite our understanding of what we've created here. This isn't just a time machine, it's a bridge. And something incredible is waiting to talk to us on the other side. The quantum chamber hums with potential, its blue-white energy pulsing in patterns I now recognize as language. We didn't escape the infinite loop, we transcended it. And in doing so, we opened the door to something far greater than we ever imagined. The real question was never, can we escape the infinite loop? It was, what happens when we understand why we're in it? And the answer to that question is just the beginning of a whole new chapter in human consciousness. This story is not over, or is it? Subscribe to this channel and find out if this thrilling sci-fi story continues or not. Only time will tell.